Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming tech, emulation, and open source news. Let's get started. Alright, to kick things off, we're talking about PlayStation 4 emulation with Shad PS4, and it seems there's a brand new beta launcher in the works. So taking a look at the launchers, and it's on its own website here, shadlaunchers.com, and at the time of filming they've just released Shad Launcher 4 0.0.1 build 55. Interesting. Anyways, they say a brand new release. The most important feature of this release probably PKG extraction support. But be aware you need to fill the crypto keys either on Crypto Manager dialog or provide a valid keys.json file. However, there is something worth pointing out here. They say, warning, this is a work in progress launcher, still not working. It is only for preview and reporting bugs. And taking a look as well at the time of filming, it's only got 8 downloads. I am very curious to see how this one shapes up moving forward, but let me know your thoughts about it. And if you are interested and wanted to learn more about it, like everything we talk about, links will be within the GitHub link in the bottom of the description below. I don't hide my sources. And speaking about interesting information, next up here we're talking about the Analog Pocket and ROM dumping. And Pixel Cherry Ninja has a brand new video out titled MROM, Preserve Game Boy Carts, Save Games, and RTC via the Analog Pocket. And it seems the Analog Pocket can be used to dump ROM off of official Game Boy Color cartridges and Game Boy cartridges. If you wanted to see this one in action, feel free to check out Pixel Cherry Ninja's video, and again, you know where the links are. This video isn't very long at all. It's 13 minutes and 14 seconds and goes over quite a bit of information. And continuing to talk about Nintendo, next up we're talking about GameCube and NSO, where NSO stands for Subscribe to Mr. Sujano, or Nintendo Switch Online, depending on how you wanted to interpret that. Anyways, it's being reported that Nintendo has seemed to fix the input lag on GameCube NSO in the latest update. Now, I've seen this information in a few different articles, and I believe this is the source of the information here over at Reset Era. This post says, not sure if anyone else has picked up on this, but go and play F-Zero GX. It's very noticeable compared to how it was before. I could tell even from the title screen menu. If there is still input lag, it appears to have been hugely reduced to a point where I personally don't notice it in-game at all now. Taking a look at the responses here, I don't have NSO, so I can't test this one out myself. But taking a look, they say, yep, all the games have been fixed, except Wind Waker. I suspect the game still feels off somehow. All other games play like a dream, finally. And this seems to be a general consensus, but there are some people saying that Wind Waker in general feels laggy even on the GameCube. And speaking about seeing stuff being reported, next up, brutal segue. Next up here, we're talking about Just Cause 3. And it's being reported that Just Cause 3 has removed Denuvo, finally, from the game. For those wondering, Just Cause 3 came out like 10 years ago, so it took them 10 years to remove Denuvo from the game. But for those who don't like Denuvo and weren't picking it up because it had Denuvo on it, well, now is a good time as any. And speaking about stuff on Steam, next up we're talking about Steam and the upcoming Steam Machine. And it appears the startup video is now available for the Steam Machine for everyone to behold. Brad Lynch has it posted, and, well, I wouldn't say it's anything huge, but there it is. It's a very short animation, like 6 seconds long. I wouldn't expect it to be more than that. Let me know your thoughts about this startup video in the comments below. That's really all I've got for this segment. And speaking about stuff that may be affected by increasing RAM prices and shortages and all of that stuff, arguably the pricing for the Steam Machine hasn't been released yet because of the RAM increases and that stuff. Anyways, along that same line, next up here we're talking, that was a really convoluted segue. Next up here we're talking about Nintendo. And it's being reported that smaller capacity Switch 2 game cards are in production due to chip shortages. They're saying it will take time before we see widespread availability, and on top of that, despite the smaller capacity, these cards will still be expensive due to rising cost of materials. Game key cards are not going away. And I'm willing to bet there's a lot of people who are not excited about that last line here. I'm one of them. In previous videos, we've talked about possible adjustments to smartphones and computers and all of that. Smartphones coming out with 4 gigs of RAM again, and possibly even less smartphones being produced with 16 gigs of RAM. Prices going up and scarcity increasing, and, well, I think a lot of different industries are going to be impacted. I don't think it's going to be unique to Nintendo here, and I'm very curious to see what happens in the overall scene. I mean, if anything, I would say that the market conditions are going to increase the popularity and reliance on stuff like game key cards. Let me know your thoughts about that. And continuing to talk about Nintendo, kinda. Next up here, we're talking about Manic Emu, which is a multi-system emulator for iOS. And Manic Emu just got a brand new update. So at the time of filming, Manic Emu version 1.8.1 is the latest and greatest version. For updates here, Nintendo 3DS, they say as a hardcore only, now supports enabling JIT on iOS 26 via stick debug. That is a huge bump to performance. Additionally, for Nintendo 3DS emulation here, they say it now supports camera functionality, amiibo loading, keyboard pop-up, and accelerometer for Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance using MGBA, and now supports the camera functionality. On top of that, they say shaders now support downloading, editing, and customization. They've added new app icons and even more. And speaking about stuff on GitHub, next up we're talking about GitHub. And there's a really interesting tweet here from GitHub. It seems that Microsoft and GitHub are taking a second look at things. So at a high level here, in yesterday's video, we talked about GitHub and how they were planning to charge for self-hosted runner starting March 1st, 2026. Obviously, that didn't go over well at all. A lot of people were vocal about it, and a lot of people were talking about just flat out switching off GitHub to another platform. It seems that Microsoft and GitHub took notice. So here's what GitHub is saying. We've read your posts and heard your feedback. We're postponing, not eliminating, postponing the announced billing change for self-hosted GitHub actions to take time to reevaluate our approach. We are continuing to reduce hosted runners prices by up to 39% on January 1st. We're going to have to wait to see what happens moving forward with GitHub, but I would argue here that this is not a good look at all for GitHub, and no matter what solution they're going to come up with, it's probably not going to sit well with developers. I am really curious to see how many developers they end up losing because of this. And continuing to talk about interesting announcements, next up we're talking about Epic and Apple, and it seems that the battle is continuing. This is the latest from Tim Sweeney. He says, sadly, Fortnite will not return to iOS in Japan in 2025 as promised. Apple was required to open up iOS to competing stores today, and instead of doing so honestly, they have launched another travesty of obstruction and lawbreaking in gross disrespect to the government and people of Japan. Apple chose poorly again. Additionally here, Tim goes on to say they're charging a competition-crushing 21% junk fee on third-party in-app payments and 15% for purchases made on the web. They're introducing new anti-competitive warning screens meant to mislead customers into believing their privacy and financial security are at risk when dealing with Apple competitors. This to me does not really reflect that. I mean, maybe this is a hot take. I'm not defending Apple. I'm not defending Epic. I'm looking at this pretty objectively. But this seems perfectly reasonable. I mean, here's the warning from the App Store. By continuing, you'll be transacting with the developer and not Apple. External accounts and purchases, any accounts or purchases made in this transaction, including their privacy and security, will be managed by the developer. Example. That is true. Unavailable App Store features. You won't use your App Store account, stored payment method, or other Apple-related features for this transaction. For refund requests, contact the developer. I think it's very worthwhile for Apple to put that on the store page there. I mean, if someone purchases something from Epic, for example, and wants a refund, they have to go through Epic and not Apple. Apple is not responsible for that. I don't see any issue with that, and I do think it's worth pointing out, but maybe that's a hot take. Let me know your thoughts about that in the comments below. And continuing to talk about thoughts about things, next up we're talking about Anbernic and the RG477V. Now, when this thing was unveiled, a lot of people were talking about it. It generated quite a bit of discussion. And now, Retro Gamecore has a brand new review video of it giving his thoughts about the device. And the title kind of gives things away. The title of this video is Anbernic RG477V, their best vertical yet. If you are at all interested in this device, I would recommend checking out Retro Gamecore's video here. I mean, Russ goes over this thing in a ton of detail. He tested out with a bunch of different emulators, a bunch of different games, and there's 43 minutes of review here. It is extremely detailed. Overall, he very favorably reviewed it, liked it a lot. The big negatives here were, one is thermal management, and who knows if that's going to affect the longevity of this device. And number two seemed to be the fan noise. It does seem that Anbernic hit a home run with this one, and I'm really curious to see the overall adoption rate and the feedback from the rest of the community. Normally when Russ calls something their best vertical handheld yet, he means business, and he isn't just throwing words around. Let me know your thoughts about this one. And speaking about hearing your thoughts about things, next up we're talking about Tencent and Sony. And it's being reported that Tencent has pulled their Horizon Zero Dawn clone, or just Horizon clone, from stores as they've settled their lawsuit with Sony. Now, for those wondering, we talked about this one in previous videos. I mean, we've talked about the lawsuit as well, and the initial impressions for the Light of Motiram. Motiram, I'm not quite sure. Anyways, the initial impressions were that this was a complete Horizon ripoff. Let me know if you thought it was in the comments below, but it does seem a confidential settlement has been made, and this game has been pulled from Epic and Steam. I guess that's a disappointing end for Tencent, and Sony are probably very happy that this has been pulled. And continuing to talk about lawsuits, next up we're talking about Nintendo. And I would argue this is one of the reasons as to why people may not want to take Nintendo to court. It's being reported Nintendo has won a 15-year legal battle with Nacon over Wii Remote patent infringement. That's a really long court battle. That's a long time for either company to keep at it. Now, I guess Nacon is appealing this, so the lawsuit doesn't appear to be entirely over just yet. But it also seems that Nintendo has been awarded damages of more than 4 million euro for a total of just under 7 million euro. That is a lot of money. I am curious to hear your thoughts. I mean, 15 years is a really long time to go to court over this, especially since they don't even make the Wii and Wiimotes anymore. Wild. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. We talked about a bunch today. Feel free to discuss anything we talked about in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button. Check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate. Save your state.